Hi, good afternoon, Sir Stephen Thames.
Hello,
Um,
Jonathan.
Great to have you with us, and I'm really thankful. We are thankful that you could take some time out of your busy schedule. Congratulations are in order, and I
Thank
just
you very much. And thank you
just
for inviting me to be with you.
I just want to ask you, how do you feel after last night?
The main thing I feel is exhaustion. I mean, it's been a long haul of a campaign, and it's physically quite demanding. You're knocking on lots of doors and walking up and down lots of streets, talking to lots of people. So it's physically hard. And then yesterday itself, I was on a polling station at 7 o'clock in Manor Park, handing out leaflets, 7 o'clock in the morning. And the result of my election count wasn't announced until around about 5 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
And then I've had a full day in the constituency today. So, yeah, my main emotion is exhaustion. But I'm also obviously delighted. It was an excellent result for my party. I very much welcome the election appointment of Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. I think people did want a change, and we're going to get a change. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds.
Well, thank you for that response, Stephen. I just want to ask you a few hard questions, if I can call them hard questions, and because some people as Christians will be nervous about a Labour government vis-a-vis the church and its civil liberties and the ability to express itself. Fiona Bruce unfortunately lost her seat, and she was an envoy for freedom of religious beliefs and religion. How can you reassure the church that the government, this new Labour government, are going to fight for our freedom of expression and our belief?
Well, first of all, I think Fiona did a great job as the Prime Minister's envoy on freedom of religion and belief. And before the election, she brought forward a bill in Parliament to make her post a permanent one. Not that she would hold it permanently, but there would be somebody who was the Prime Minister's envoy on freedom of religion and belief to sort of enmesh that permanently in the government system. And I was one of the signatories to her bill. Unfortunately, like quite a few things, the bill was lost when the Prime Minister called the election early. So there is not now a law that we should have a Prime Minister's envoy for freedom of religion and belief. But nevertheless, it's something I've talked to the shadow Foreign Secretary, as he was before the election, David Lammy, about. And I know that, and I'm very hopeful that his intention, if he becomes Foreign Secretary, would be that there should again be a Prime Minister's envoy with this responsibility. And David, as you probably know, was somebody who grew up in Peterborough Cathedral Choir, I think, and has got very strong faith commitments and connections himself. So I don't think there is going to be a problem about religious freedom in the current government, although, all of us need to be on the alert if problems do arise. But I certainly don't myself think there's going to be any more problems from the current government than there was from the last one. Indeed, I very much welcome the fact that a number of committed Christians have been elected as Labour MPs this time. I think a significantly larger number than were in the last Parliament. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they impact our debates over the next few months as well.
Okay. So how can we, and this is a divert question, but I'm going to come back to this. How can we pray for Christian MPs, both in the Labour Party, Labour government, and in other parties? How can we pray for you as believers, as Christians? Because there are lots of intercessors on this platform. How can we be praying for you?
I think in much the same way that we would pray for people of responsibility in any walk of life. These are people who, quite a number of whom have been elected for the very first time. They're going to be in the public eye in a way they're not familiar with, not used to. That will create a lot of pressure on them, and they will all want to respond to that pressure and to take up their new responsibilities in a way that is consistent with what they believe and with their walk with Christ. And I would hope that we can pray for all of them, that they'll be able to make the right judgments, that they will understand how God is leading in the new responsibilities that they hold, and that they're able to really help change the country for the better in the new parliament.
Well, thank you for that. And coming back to your role, and we mentioned this last time you came, but we didn't go into it in detail. You are the chair of the Faith Advocates. And also, there was a letter written to church leaders or to faith leaders. And Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, in that letter, said that they want to appoint a minister to lead in the engagement of faith communities and the church. Are you aware of this? And how does this, is this separate from your role? Is this somebody else? Do you know who this person is going to be? And how can we work in partnership together with you and them?
Well, I'm very glad you've mentioned Keir's letter, the letter dated the 10th of June, which I very much welcomed, which does, amongst other things, make the point, by the way, and I quote it, "I want to reassure you that a Labour government would be committed to building a Britain where all faith communities are safe and where diversity is celebrated." I think that's a helpful message as well. But to some extent, the ideas in Keir's letter are drawn from work which I and others have been doing in Parliament, in the all-party parliamentary group on faith and society, which I chair. And really, what happened in the pandemic, in a way that a lot of people were very surprised by, was all across the country, communities became very dependent suddenly on their churches. When local councils needed the support of civil society to get food to people who otherwise, because of lockdown, would not have had access to food, and other help and support as well, it turned out it was very largely the churches who stepped forward to take on the role. Of course, churches have, for a long time, including yours, Jonathan, have had a very important role in providing food banks. But it was really, I think, when the pandemic hit and when we had lockdown, that it became clear just how dependent communities were on their churches and on other faith groups as well. But numerically, it's largely churches, and even in a community like mine, which is a very multi-faith community, it was the churches who took on the lion's share of that work. And I think people saw that, and people in the Labour Party saw that and recognised it, and hence Keir's letter making the point, and I quote, "Through years of austerity, a global pandemic, overseas conflict, and a cost of living crisis, our faith groups have served with resilience and compassion." And Keir has set out this ambition for a decade of national renewal, in which he wants everybody to be involved, and he's very, very clear that must entail a partnership between the government and faith groups if we are to be able to draw on all the resources available to renew our country and put us on a better path for the future. So he's committed to the appointment of, as you say, a minister for faith engagement. I think the idea partly here is that when a church group has an idea for a way it can serve our community or our nation, there needs to be somebody in government that they can go to and say, "Look, we've got this idea. Who can we talk to about it?" At the moment, there isn't anywhere you can go. Where can you start? There needs to be somebody that's clearly identified as the person that you start with, and that's what I think this minister would the role that they would play. We don't know who it is.
I was just about to ask.
No, we've only got the very first appointments of the government so far, but I've no doubt over the weekend, most, if not all, of the ministerial roles will be announced, and we'll discover who's in this particular one. But you mentioned the faith champions that I'm the chair of. That's a Labour Party initiative because we recognise that our party needed to do better at working with churches and with other faith groups. And so we set up this network of champions with a particular responsibility of liaising between the party on the one hand and faith groups on the other. And I certainly envisage that work going forward. And I'm happy to carry it on if that's what. But that's not a ministerial role.
Okay, I understand.
It's not a paid role. It's a voluntary party role.
Okay. I think we would talk about that more because of all the stuff we want to do with Shine Your Light and the stuff we want to do across all the churches at Christmas. And you and I have worked very closely together. So I'm hoping now that we have a Labour government, we can do some of the stuff we used to do before. We had these events at Downing Street. The Prime Minister was involved. You facilitated a lot of that. And I think it would be great for us to have a model of something that inspires the church that this government is determined to support the church.
Yeah, well, I'll be very keen, Jonathan, and I'm very hopeful that the new Prime Minister will be as well.
Okay, fantastic. Do you know about the Faith Covenant?
I do. So the Faith Covenant is something that was drawn up by the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Faith and Society, which I've chaired ever since 2012. This is a cross-party group. It's not party-specific in the way that the Faith Champions is. It's cross-party. But we recognised early on that there's often a problem about local councils working with faith groups. The local councils are often quite nervous about it. They think if they work with one faith group over here, maybe they'll upset another faith group over there. And it all seems very complicated, and maybe life is a bit easier if you don't get involved with any of them. And very often that's what happens. And so in 2014, we published our proposed Faith Covenant, which just sets out, it's on the website of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Faith and Society. You can see what it is. It's a very simple thing. Half a dozen ground rules for local councils who want to work with faith groups in their area, saying, for example, that if the council offers a training opportunity to voluntary sector groups in their area, then they should include invitations to faith groups to take up the opportunity as well. So those are the kind of things for the councils to sign up to. And then similarly, half a dozen rules for the faith groups who want to work with their local council to sign up to, things like very good equal opportunities provisions in how they do things. And what we then, having published this covenant, we then invited local authorities to sign up to it with the faith groups in their area. The first to do so was the city of Birmingham. That happened in 2014 at the Central Library in Birmingham. And since then, round about 30 local authorities, including some very large ones, Birmingham is a very big one, but including some very large ones, have signed up to it with their faith groups. And I think what Keir Starmer is saying in his letter is that he likes this approach, and he'd like to see the government encouraging local councils and faith groups to sign up to arrangements of this kind for their specific area, so that faith groups, churches and others are able to contribute more in the future.
So churches watching this interview or this conversation I'm having with you, if they wanted to develop this in their area, who can they contact? Can they contact you? Who can they go to?
They can certainly contact me at the House of Commons. The Secretariat for our All-Party Parliamentary Group on Faith and Society is provided by the organisation Faith Action. You may well know Daniel Singleton, who's the chief executive of that. So they do a lot of the work on this and have done a lot of the work on promoting the Faith Covenant. They're based in Dagenham, not far from you and me, Jonathan. So, but the first stop I would suggest is just look at our website, All-Party Parliamentary Group, Faith and Society, look up the Faith Covenant and you can see it all there.
Okay, last question, maybe it's a question, but this platform, listening to you right now, are hundreds of intercessors, church leaders. We're going to put this online. People are going to listen to this. What would you say to the church community on the light of this new government and this change that has come to the United Kingdom through a new Labour government?
I would ask everybody to pray for the new government. I think it is a hopeful moment for the country. I think almost everybody felt there was really a need for a change, that the country had got itself into quite a difficult situation. And I think even those who voted for the Conservatives felt actually there is a need for change. So it's a moment, I think, for us to pray for the new government. And to look for opportunities to serve. And let's explore those. Let's see how the new government, local councils, churches can work together to make Britain better in the future than it has been in the past.
Fantastic. Thank you. Stephen, somebody said to me, is Stephen a Christian? I said, I know he's a Christian. So can you just go on the record and say you're an evangelical Christian? Because I need to tell these people. I said, I know you, but some people said they doubt it, but I said you are.
Oh, I'm an evangelical Christian. Yeah, have been since my teens.
I know. But thank you so much.
Thank you,
Steve.
Jonathan. Thank you for your
I
welcome.
really appreciate
what
this.
you're doing.
And we're going to be praying for you. And
thank you.
We're going to have our conversations beyond this. So thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to them. God bless.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.